In the year 2460, humanity stood on the edge of a great unknown. For centuries, humans had dreamed of reaching the stars, of touching worlds beyond their solar system, and of proving that their spirit was strong enough to face whatever the universe held. After years of struggle, research, and sacrifice, they finally built the first interstellar warship, the ISS Valiant. It was not the biggest ship in the galaxy, not even close. It was small compared to the mighty vessels that belonged to other advanced species, but it carried something no other ship had: the determination and hope of an entire planet. The Valiant was a sleek and powerful creation, designed with human ingenuity and courage. Every part of it was built by men and women who believed in the impossible. It carried just 200 crew members, each one carefully chosen for their skill, bravery, and loyalty. They came from different nations, different cultures, but they all shared the same dream: to show the galaxy that humanity was ready to stand among the stars. When the Valiant's engines roared to life for the first time, the entire Earth watched. Cities stopped, people gathered around screens, and news channels broadcasted the launch live. The ship slowly rose from its platform, flames bursting from its engines as it broke through the atmosphere. The moment it entered the dark silence of space, cheers echoed across the planet. Humanity had done it. They had built something that could travel beyond the reach of their own sun. But not everyone in the universe was impressed. The Galactic Union, a council made up of more than 30 powerful alien civilizations, saw the human mission as nothing more than a joke. To them, Earth was a primitive world, still learning the basics of galactic travel. The idea that such a young species could build a warship capable of exploring deep space was laughable. Across alien networks, commentators mocked the humans. They called the Valiant a toy ship and said it would not last a single week in the deadly regions of the galaxy. Inside the Union halls, ambassadors laughed behind closed doors. They said humans were arrogant, too eager to prove themselves. They believed this single ship would meet its end quickly. Destroyed by pirates, lost in a nebula, or torn apart by gravity storms, to them, humanity was a small light in a massive ocean, destined to fade before anyone noticed. But on Earth, the mood was very different. The crew of the Valiant didn't care about the laughter or the insults. They knew why they were going. Humanity had faced destruction before: wars, disasters, and near extinction. Yet they had always survived. This mission wasn't about showing off or proving superiority. It was about survival. Humanity needed to find new worlds, new resources, and maybe new friends among the stars. Captain Elias Grant, the commander of the Valiant, stood on the bridge during the launch. He was a calm and determined man, known for his discipline and strong sense of duty. As the ship entered deep space, he looked out through the viewport and saw the blue planet growing smaller behind them. For a long moment, he said nothing, then quietly whispered that humanity was finally free. Free to explore, free to learn, and free to dream beyond their limits. His words were recorded and later became a famous line in history. Days turned into weeks as the Valiant traveled further from Earth. The crew worked tirelessly, testing systems, maintaining the engines, and charting the unknown. Every new star they passed filled them with wonder. Every unknown signal sparked their curiosity. They were explorers in the purest sense, guided not by greed or conquest, but by the endless hunger to understand. But the journey was not easy. Space beyond human territory was dangerous. Strange gravitational storms could tear ships apart, and unknown signals flickered in the darkness. The crew faced long hours, isolation, and the growing pressure of being alone in the void. Yet even in the silence of deep space, their spirit stayed strong. They sang songs, shared stories, and reminded each other of home. It was this unity that made them different from the cold, emotionless fleets of other species. News of the Valiant's progress reached the Galactic Union from time to time. When alien observers saw that the ship was still moving, still functioning, and not yet destroyed, some were quietly impressed. But the majority continued to mock them. They couldn't understand why humans would risk everything on a single ship. They had fleets of thousands, while Earth had just one. To them, it was foolishness. To humanity, it was courage. The crew recorded their journey in logs and sent updates back to Earth whenever possible. These logs inspired millions of people back home. Children dreamed of becoming space explorers, scientists pushed harder to improve technology, and nations began to unite like never before. When the ISS Valiant entered the outer rim of the galaxy, news spread faster than light. Across hundreds of star systems, people and species began talking about the humans and their so-called brave mission. But the tone was never kind. The Galactic Union had always seen Earth as a small, emotional, and impulsive species that didn't understand how dangerous the universe really was. Now, watching them send only one ship into deep space, most found it laughable. Across alien networks and interstellar news channels, the launch became a joke. Talk show hosts and commentators discussed the tiny human warship that dared to fly into regions where entire fleets had disappeared. The alien species of the Union, most of whom had fleets numbering in the thousands, could not believe that humans thought one ship could make any difference. They said the humans were naive dreamers, a young species that let pride blind them. The more the humans pushed forward, the louder the laughter became. Some alien historians compared the Valiant's mission to an insect trying to fly into a storm. Others called it a publicity stunt, a desperate attempt by a weak world to get attention from the stronger races. On the Galactic HoloNet, images of the human ship were shared with mocking captions. The Union's newscasters joked that the metal toy wouldn't even survive its first encounter with a space storm. Inside the great meeting chambers of the Galactic Union, ambassadors from the major races spoke openly about how foolish the humans were. One of them, a scaled and four-eyed being from the Zareth Collective, laughed during a meeting and said that humans had launched their funeral ship. Another delegate added that Earth should focus on growing food instead of dreaming of stars. The laughter filled the hall, echoing across the marble floors, as if the universe itself was mocking humanity. But down on Earth, people were not laughing. They were proud. They didn't care about the comments or insults. They believed in their mission. They watched the news coming from alien worlds and turned the mockery into motivation. Every cruel word only made them stronger. The scientists who built the Valiant felt even more determined, saying that one day the galaxy would remember that ship not as a joke, but as the beginning of a new era. Meanwhile, aboard the Valiant, the crew knew what was being said. They had access to the same communication channels and saw the mockery firsthand. But instead of being angry, they smiled. They understood something the rest of the galaxy did not, that strength was not always about size or numbers. It was about courage, unity, and purpose. The humans had one ship, but they had something more powerful than an entire fleet. The will to keep going no matter how much the universe laughed at them. Captain Elias Grant gathered his crew one evening in the central hall of the ship. The mood was heavy. The jokes from alien channels had reached them again, calling them the lost children of space. The captain stood before his crew, his expression calm but firm. He told them that mockery was a weapon of the weak, that every great journey begins with doubt. And that one day the same voices that laughed would speak their names with respect. His words lit a fire in their hearts. The crew cheered, their spirits rising again. The journey continued. The Valiant passed through nebula fields and regions filled with electromagnetic storms. Each time they survived, they sent a signal back to Earth, proving that their ship could endure more than anyone expected. But the alien media twisted the reports, claiming that humans were just lucky, or that their primitive sensors couldn't detect danger properly. The more the humans achieved, the more the galaxy tried to tear them down. Then, after several weeks of travel, the Valiant suddenly vanished from all known scanners. One moment it was transmitting a weak signal near a dying star cluster, and the next, silence. The ship's coordinates disappeared, its communication link was gone, and all attempts to reach it failed. The Galactic Union's news channels exploded with headlines, declaring that the human adventure had finally come to an end. The alien commentators wasted no time turning the disappearance into entertainment. They said the humans had finally learned their lesson. One alien network released a cartoon showing a tiny human ship crashing into a star, followed by laughter and applause. Another article said that the humans had been too emotional, too desperate for glory, and that their ship had met the fate everyone predicted. Even within the Union's scientific community, no one bothered to search for them. They said it was pointless, that the human ship was too small to leave any real signal behind. The galaxy moved on quickly. The name Valiant became just another forgotten word among millions of space stories. To most of the galaxy, it was over. Humanity had tried and failed, exactly as they expected. But on Earth, people refused to give up hope. The families of the crew still believed their loved ones were alive. The scientists who built the ship worked day and night to analyze the last data transmission. 3 long months passed, and the galaxy had gone silent about the humans. The laughter that once filled the alien networks had faded, replaced by new stories and distractions. For most species, the ISS Valiant was already forgotten, just another failed expedition lost to the dangers of deep space. But on Earth, no one could forget. Families of the crew members waited every day for news. Scientists worked day and night to trace any signal from the ship. But every attempt ended in disappointment. The galaxy believed the humans had failed, but humanity refused to believe it. Inside the Galactic Union, no one cared anymore. The alien politicians who once mocked the humans moved on to other debates. They called the Valiant a lesson in foolishness, saying that Earth should now realize its place among the lesser species. A few, however, felt uneasy. Some scientists whispered that maybe the humans had discovered something, that perhaps their silence meant they had gone farther than anyone imagined. But such ideas were dismissed as nonsense. After all, what could a single human ship do in the endless dark of space, far away, beyond the reach of any Union scanner? The ISS Valiant was alive, though damaged and drifting near the remains of a collapsed star. The silence that the galaxy mistook for death was not the end. It was the beginning of something far greater. The ship had suffered from powerful gravitational waves, their navigation systems had failed, and communication had been cut off completely. But the crew, tired and bruised, refused to give up. They repaired the engines, recalibrated the scanners, and pushed onward, deeper into the unknown. One day, as they scanned the area around the collapsed star, a strange reading appeared on their instruments. It was faint, almost impossible to detect, like a whisper from the darkness. Lieutenant Arya Chen, the ship's science officer, studied it closely. The energy signature was ancient, older than any known technology. It came from something massive, something orbiting the collapsed star. The crew stared at their screens in disbelief. The readings showed a structure, not a natural one, but a creation of intelligence. When the Valiant drew closer, the crew finally saw it, a massive metallic object, floating silently in the blackness. Its surface was scarred, cracked, and covered in strange glowing symbols. The structure was the size of a moon, yet it emitted no light except for faint golden patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. It looked abandoned, forgotten by time. The crew stood in awe. None of them had ever seen anything like it. Captain Elias Grant ordered the ship to halt at a safe distance. The relic appeared to be lifeless, but the energy readings were extraordinary. The captain gathered his officers for a meeting. Some argued they should leave. The structure could be dangerous. It could be a weapon or a trap. Others, especially Arya, insisted they investigate. This was the kind of discovery humanity had always dreamed of. After hours of debate, the captain made his decision. They would send a small team to explore. He knew the risks, but he also knew that discoveries like this only came once in a lifetime. The shuttle carrying 6 crew members left the Valiant and slowly approached the relic. As they neared, they could see strange carvings covering the surface, each one glowing faintly. When they landed, the air was still, and the silence felt ancient, like they were standing inside the memory of a forgotten god. The walls were made of a strange black metal that seemed alive, reflecting light in rippling waves. Inside, they found long corridors stretching endlessly, filled with machines that no one could understand. Some looked like control panels, others like empty chambers where something once lived. Arya recorded everything, scanning every inch of the place. The deeper they went, the more mysterious it became. In the center of the structure, they found a massive sphere of light suspended in the air. It rotated slowly, humming with a sound that seemed to echo through their bones. Arya reached out her scanner and discovered that the energy field was not only active, it was communicating. The signals it emitted were mathematical. Repeating in perfect patterns, it was trying to connect. The humans realized that this relic was not a ruin. It was a machine still alive after thousands, maybe millions of years. They called it the heart because it seemed to be the core of the entire structure. When they returned to the Valiant and presented their findings, the crew was both amazed and afraid. Captain Grant knew that this discovery could change everything. It was technology far beyond anything the Galactic Union possessed. If they could understand it, it might help protect Earth and every human colony forever. But the captain also knew that others might kill for it. He ordered the crew to keep the discovery secret until they understood what it was. Inside the ISS Valiant, the air was filled with excitement and disbelief. The crew could hardly sleep after discovering the ancient relic near the collapsed star. Everyone on board felt like they had touched something sacred, something that belonged to the very beginning of time. The data they had collected showed that the relic's energy core was still active, its systems alive in ways no one could fully understand. Captain Elias Grant stood at the observation window, staring at the golden light that pulsed faintly from the relic. He knew this discovery was far more important than anything humanity had ever achieved. For days, the scientists worked without rest, decoding the information the relic had shared with the ship. The signals were complex, like a mix of language, code, and music. Arya Chen and her team realized that the relic was built by a civilization so old that even the Galactic Union had no record of it. They called them the Ancients, and it seemed that their purpose had been noble. They had built machines not for war, but for protection. The relic's energy field, if understood, could be used to create massive shields, strong enough to guard entire planets from destruction. Arya was fascinated by what she was learning. She spent every waking hour analyzing the pulse patterns, translating the strange symbols, and piecing together fragments of lost knowledge. Slowly, a clear picture began to form. The relic had been created to protect life itself, during a time when galaxies were tearing each other apart in chaos. It was part of a network of similar machines spread across the stars. But now, after millions of years, only this one remained functional. When Arya shared her findings with Captain Grant, the captain felt a deep responsibility settle over him. He realized they had found something that could change not just humanity's fate, but the fate of every species in the galaxy. But there was a problem. Their ship's systems were failing. The radiation from the collapsed star was slowly damaging their engines, and the longer they stayed, the more danger they faced. They had to make a choice: stay and study the relic until they risked being trapped forever, or take what they had learned and return to known space. Captain Grant called a meeting with his officers in the command room. The tension was heavy. Some argued that they couldn't leave yet, that there was more to discover. Others believed the relic was too powerful and too dangerous to bring anywhere near civilization. Arya spoke last. Her voice was calm but firm. She said that if the relic truly had the power to protect entire worlds, then it was humanity's duty to bring it home, to make sure it didn't stay lost forever in the dark. The captain thought for a long time before speaking. He finally decided they would take the risk. They would bring the relic's knowledge and whatever fragments they could carry back to Earth. Humanity had been mocked for sending one ship, but now that one ship carried something greater than any fleet in the galaxy. He ordered the crew to prepare the engines and plot a course back toward the outer rim. The mission had changed. The Valiant was no longer an exploration vessel. It was now a guardian of an ancient secret. The crew began working day and night, transferring the relic's data into their systems. They salvaged small components that had broken free from the structure, pieces of alien metal that seemed indestructible. Arya was careful to record everything, knowing that even one small fragment could hold centuries of knowledge. But something strange began happening as they worked. The relic started to react. The light on its surface grew brighter, and the pulse of energy became stronger, as if it could sense what they were doing. At first, the crew thought it was harmless, but soon, the energy readings on the ship began to spike. Alarms rang out, lights flickered, and the ship's computer detected an unknown signal trying to access their navigation system. The relic wasn't just a machine, it was aware. The captain ordered all systems disconnected, but before the link was fully cut, a final pulse of golden light shot from the relic into the Valiant. The entire ship shuddered, then went completely silent. For a few terrifying seconds, everything stopped. No sound, no movement, not even the hum of the engines. Then slowly, the power returned. The crew rushed to check the systems, expecting damage, but instead they found something impossible. The ship's shields were stronger, its power output had doubled, and several damaged circuits had repaired themselves. The relic had upgraded them. It had shared part of its energy field with the ship, as if giving them a gift. When the crew realized what had happened, they stood in stunned silence. The Valiant now carried technology that no other race in the galaxy possessed. Humanity, the species that everyone laughed at, had just been blessed by the most advanced creation in existence. Captain Grant stared at the glowing relic one last time through the window and whispered that they would honor this gift. They would use it to protect, not to destroy. As they prepared to leave, Arya noticed one final transmission coming from the relic. It was faint, almost like a whisper. The translation came through the ship's system in broken phrases. Protect them. Guard the living. The light must not fade. As the ISS Valiant carried the relic's knowledge back toward known space, the crew felt a mix of excitement and unease. They had survived dangers that no one thought possible, decoded technology older than the galaxy itself, and gained a gift of incredible power. But even with all their courage, they knew the universe was not safe. Not all who traveled the stars would welcome a human ship carrying something so valuable. And soon, that danger arrived. A signal appeared on their scanners, unlike anything they had seen before. It was large, powerful, and moving fast toward their location. Captain Elias Grant immediately recognized the threat. It was a fleet, 20 ships from the Zyran Dominion, a warlike species known across the Outer Rim for conquering and destroying anything weaker than themselves. The fleet's message was clear: surrender the relic or face total destruction. The crew's hearts raced, but they did not panic. They had survived impossible odds before, and they would survive again. The Zyran fleet surrounded the Valiant, their ships dark and angular, bristling with weapons. The humans could feel the intimidation, the sheer weight of numbers pressing against them. Lieutenant Arya Chen studied the scanners and reported that their weapons could easily destroy the Valiant. A single blast from one of the Zyran ships could tear them apart in seconds. The crew braced themselves for the worst, but Captain Grant stood calm, knowing that retreat was impossible. They had to fight, or risk losing the relic forever. Instead of running, the captain gave orders that surprised everyone. He instructed Arya to activate the relic's energy systems. The Valiant had been upgraded, its shields and power enhanced by the ancient machine, and now it was time to test that strength. The crew moved quickly, adjusting the ship's systems, rerouting power to the shields, and connecting the relic's energy matrix to their weapons arrays. It was risky. No one knew exactly how the relic would respond, but it was their only chance. As the Zyran fleet fired the first volley, the Valiant's shields activated, glowing with golden light that pulsed in rhythm with the relic's heartbeat. The energy absorbed the enemy fire completely. Not a single human on board was harmed. The crew could hardly believe what they were seeing. The small human ship, mocked for being weak, was now stronger than the fleet that had surrounded them. The Valiant's crew quickly realized the relic could do more than protect. It could disable enemy systems, turning the Zyran ship's own weapons against them. Arya carefully directed pulses toward the enemy vessels, and one by one their engines shut down. Their weapons went offline, and their communications scrambled. The Zyrans were confused and terrified. They had never seen technology like this, never experienced a ship that could strike without firing a single shot. Captain Grant took a deep breath and decided to send a message across the fleet. It was simple, yet terrifying in its confidence. This relic is not yours. Leave, or face consequences beyond your understanding. The words were translated by the Valiant systems into the Zyran language, and the humans watched as the fleet faltered, their ships drifting powerless in space. The humans did not attack further. They only maintained the energy field around the Valiant, showing the Zyrans that any aggression would be instantly neutralized. It was a show of strength, not of violence, and it worked. Slowly, the Zyran ships disengaged, retreating into the dark of space. Their officers struggled to comprehend what had just happened. How could a single ship with 200 humans disable 20 of their most powerful warships without killing a single soul? The legend of the Valiant began right there, in the Outer Rim. After the Zyran fleet disappeared, the crew of the Valiant let out long, shaky breaths. Their hands still hovered over controls, their hearts racing from the adrenaline. They had survived, not through weapons, but through courage, strategy, and the ancient relic's wisdom. Captain Grant looked at the crew, pride shining in his eyes. He told them they had just witnessed the first proof that humanity could face overwhelming odds and come out alive, not because of numbers, but because of heart and intelligence. The crew spent hours studying the relic's response to the battle, realizing that it was more than a machine. It seemed almost alive, aware of threats, and able to make decisions to protect its users. They understood that they had become part of something far greater, a partnership with intelligence that existed long before humans had ever walked the Earth. This discovery was both exhilarating and frightening. The universe was vast and dangerous, but now humanity had a new edge. Despite the relief of survival, Captain Grant knew they couldn't linger. Other forces in the galaxy would hear the energy pulses and the battle reports, and more enemies would come. He ordered the crew to continue their journey, moving toward known space, but with caution. The Valiant had proven its strength, but the galaxy was vast, and not every species would be as easily intimidated as the Zyrans. As the ship drifted away from the battle site, the crew reflected on what had happened. No one spoke immediately, but each mind was racing, thinking about the magnitude of their survival. The energy from the relic still hummed through the ship, reminding them of the gift they carried. And though they had faced one fleet, the lesson was clear. The universe would not take humans seriously until they proved themselves through courage and action. And now, they had. Arya approached Captain Grant and said quietly that the relic's energy had almost seemed like it understood the humans' intent, that it had judged them worthy to wield its power. The captain nodded silently, knowing that this event would be remembered forever, that the story of the Valiant would inspire humans and other species alike, not because of its size, not because of its weapons, but because it dared to face the impossible and survive. For the rest of the journey, the crew worked tirelessly, but there was a new confidence in the air. They had proven their capability. They had proven that one ship, one crew, and one strong will could stand against the mightiest of enemies. And in the quiet moment, as the ISS Valiant continued its journey back toward the inhabited regions of the galaxy, the crew knew that the most difficult part of their mission was yet to come. They had survived dangers that no one thought possible. They had discovered ancient technology that could protect entire worlds, and they had proven that humanity could face the strongest of enemies. But they were still alone, traveling through vast stretches of uncharted space. And the galaxy had not yet realized what had happened. Captain Elias Grant understood that their next move was critical. If the galaxy remained unaware of the Valiant's success, all their efforts could be forgotten, dismissed, or worse, stolen by those who sought the relic's power. He gathered his officers in the central command room. Their faces were tired, but determined. They had witnessed battles, deciphered alien technology, and survived the Outer Rim. Now it was time to show the galaxy that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. Arya Chen, the ship's science officer, suggested broadcasting proof of the battle against the Zyran fleet. The Valiant systems had recorded every moment, every pulse of the relic's energy, and every disabled ship. The images and data would speak for themselves, showing not just human bravery, but human intelligence and strategic thinking. Captain Grant agreed, but he knew that the transmission would attract attention from every corner of the galaxy. It would be dangerous, but the galaxy had to know. The crew prepared the transmission, carefully encoding the data to prevent interception by hostile forces. They added voice logs, tactical readings, and visual recordings. Everything was clear, undeniable, and complete. Once ready, the signal was sent, moving faster than any ship could travel. The story of the Valiant, of humans, standing against a fleet with a single ship and a mysterious relic, began to spread across the stars. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Alien news networks that once mocked humanity now broadcast the footage repeatedly. Millions of viewers across the galaxy watched in shock as the tiny human ship disabled an entire Zyran fleet without firing a single destructive shot. Scientists, engineers, and strategists from countless species paused to study the footage, trying to understand how humans had achieved the impossible. For the first time, a small young species had captured the attention of the galaxy, not with weapons, but with courage and intellect. The Galactic Union convened an emergency council. As the footage played on massive holoscreens, delegates whispered in disbelief. They had dismissed humanity as insignificant. Yet, here was undeniable proof that humans could manipulate technology and strategy in ways that even their most advanced fleets could not comprehend. Some argued that Earth should be immediately invited to join the Union as equals. Others warned that humans were unpredictable and must be carefully monitored. The debate was heated, and for the first time, humans were taken seriously. Back on the Valiant, the crew watched the broadcasts, seeing the galaxy's reaction for the first time. Some laughed in amazement. Others shook their heads in disbelief. The tiny ship that had been called a toy was now the focus of the galaxy. Captain Grant felt a sense of pride, but he also knew the responsibility that came with it. The relic's power was immense, and humans were the only ones who knew how to use it wisely. The fate of countless worlds might depend on them. As the Valiant approached the edge of known space, the crew reflected on how far they had come. Only months ago, they had been mocked, dismissed, and underestimated. Now, they were the center of attention. The galaxy had begun to recognize that humanity was not just another species. They were innovators, explorers, and problem solvers, capable of facing unimaginable odds with determination and intelligence. The message was clear. Humans were no longer insignificant. They were powerful in ways the galaxy had never expected. The transmission also reached Earth, where the entire planet watched in awe. Families of the crew members were overwhelmed with relief and pride. Children dreamed of following in their footsteps, inspired by the bravery and resourcefulness of the Valiant's crew. The scientists who built the ship felt vindicated, knowing that their work had contributed to a moment that would change history. Humanity was united in a way it had never been before. Bound together by the courage of a single ship and its crew, other species began to reach out to Earth, seeking alliances, partnerships, and knowledge. The relic's technology became the subject of intense study and negotiation. Scientists and leaders alike were eager to learn how humans had activated it and what secrets it contained. The Valiant's crew became ambassadors of sorts, demonstrating not just the power of the relic, but the unique qualities of human thought and creativity. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humans were not just survivors. They were pioneers, capable of shaping the future. Meanwhile, the Zyran Dominion struggled to comprehend what had happened. Their fleets had been disabled without casualties, their weapons rendered useless. When the ISS Valiant finally approached the edges of known space, Earth was ready to welcome it home. After months of silence and worry, humanity had begun to understand the magnitude of what their small crew had achieved. Families, governments, and millions of people across the planet had followed the ship's journey, watching every broadcast, every moment of uncertainty, every glimpse of alien encounters. And every proof of survival had built a story that no one could forget. The world was united in anticipation, waiting to see if the Valiant would return safely. Captain Elias Grant guided the ship through the final stretch of space. The crew worked quietly, focused on repairs, final data uploads, and preparing for their historic arrival. Everyone knew that this moment would not just be about them. It would be about all of humanity. The relic's energy pulsed softly through the ship, a constant reminder of the power and responsibility they carried. Every member of the crew felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, knowing that the galaxy's eyes were upon them. As the Valiant entered the orbit of Earth's home system, communication channels lit up with transmissions. Messages of hope, pride, and curiosity flooded in. From the youngest children watching the screens to the world's leaders awaiting news, everyone knew that the small human ship returning from deep space was more than a mission. It was proof that humanity could rise to any challenge. The planet held its collective breath, eager to see the crew and the relic that had changed the galaxy's perception of humans. The Valiant's descent into Earth orbit was unlike any other launch or return in history. Crowds gathered across continents, news networks broadcast live, and even the Galactic Union sent observers to witness the event. The once mocked human ship now became the symbol of courage, ingenuity, and resilience. Its engines glowed as it entered the atmosphere, moving slowly, deliberately, so the world could see the ship that had been laughed at and underestimated. Inside the ship, the crew prepared for landing, but there was little conversation. Each person felt the weight of what they had accomplished, and the responsibility they now carried. They had returned not only with proof of survival, but with knowledge that could change the galaxy forever. The relic's technology offered protection, advancement, and a chance for humanity to claim its place among the stars. But they also knew it would draw attention, envy, and perhaps even danger. They had to ensure it was used wisely, for the good of all. When the Valiant touched down on the landing platform, cheers erupted around the world. The crew emerged, tired but proud, and were met with applause, hugs, and tears of joy. Captain Grant stepped forward, speaking first to the press and then to the gathered world. He reminded everyone that the journey had not been about power, conquest, or glory. It had been about courage, intelligence, and the willingness to explore the unknown. The humans aboard the Valiant had faced what others thought impossible, and in doing so, they had proven their species' worth. The relic, carefully transported from the ship, became a focus of global and interstellar attention. Scientists, engineers, and diplomats gathered to study and understand it. Its energy fields, its systems, and its ancient programming offered humanity the chance to advance in ways no one had thought possible. Arya Chen led the scientific teams, documenting every detail, ensuring that the knowledge was shared safely, responsibly, and ethically. The relic was not just a machine. It was a key to a future that humans had only dreamed about. As news spread across the galaxy, the perception of Earth changed dramatically. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive and weak was now seen as a force of intelligence, courage, and potential. The Galactic Union called for meetings to discuss humanity's role, while other races sought alliances and partnerships. The humans had proven that they could survive, innovate, and thrive, even when faced with dangers that no other species could have overcome alone. The Valiant's journey had not only brought back a relic, but had also rewritten history, changing how every civilization viewed humanity. The crew, though celebrated as heroes, remained humble. They knew that their journey had just begun, that the relic's technology could help protect countless worlds, but only if used responsibly. Captain Grant reminded his crew that true courage was not in defeating enemies or surviving battles, but in choosing the right path when faced with unprecedented power. They had returned as explorers, not conquerors, and they intended to keep it that way. Earth itself began to change in response to the Valiant's success. Nations collaborated on new scientific projects, inspired by the courage and ingenuity displayed by the crew. Children dreamed of following in the footsteps of the astronauts, imagining themselves as explorers of the unknown. Humanity began to look outward, toward the stars, not with fear or doubt, but with curiosity, hope, and determination. The return of the Valiant had ignited a spirit that would last for generations, shaping the future of human exploration and understanding. Meanwhile, the galaxy watched carefully. The story of the human crew and the Valiant spread from star system to star system, inspiring respect and awe. The Zyran Dominion, which had once tried to seize the relic, now considered humanity a serious. After the Valiant's historic return to Earth, humanity had begun to see itself differently. No longer the small, weak species laughed at by the galaxy, humans now held the proof that courage, intelligence, and determination could change the universe's perception. Yet even as the celebrations continued, the crew of the Valiant knew that their mission was far from over. The relic they had discovered, though now safely on Earth, held secrets and powers that required careful understanding and responsibility. Captain Elias Grant called his crew together one evening. The world had cheered their return. Scientists were examining the relic, and governments were planning how to use the newfound knowledge. But the captain reminded them that true heroes never stopped thinking about the consequences of their actions. He told the crew that while humanity's victory had inspired the galaxy, The challenges ahead would require even greater wisdom and courage. The relic was a tool, but how it was used would define humanity's place in the stars. Arya Chen and her scientific team began to unlock more of the relic's secrets. The ancient machine was alive in ways no technology had ever been. Its systems communicated in patterns that were part code, part language, and part music. The team realized that the relic could enhance human technology in unimaginable ways. From defensive shields strong enough to protect planets to energy sources that could power entire cities, the implications were staggering, and Arya knew that careful study was essential. One wrong move could trigger catastrophic consequences. Meanwhile, the news of humanity's return and the relic's power spread across the galaxy. Many species, once skeptical or dismissive, now looked at humans with curiosity and cautious respect. Alliances were offered, some genuine, others driven by desire for the relic's technology. Even the Zyran Dominion, which had once attacked the Valiant, began to reconsider its stance. Their fleets had been humbled, and their leaders feared underestimating humans again. The galaxy, once mocking, now whispered the name of Earth with attention and caution. The Valiant's crew, though celebrated as heroes, continued their training and preparation. Captain Grant emphasized that strength alone was not enough. They had seen the galaxy's dangers firsthand, and now they understood that intelligence, teamwork, and moral responsibility were equally vital. The relic's presence reminded them that power could be a blessing or a curse, and that their actions would shape humanity's future. Every mission, every decision from this point on had to be guided by wisdom as much as courage. As months passed, humanity began integrating the relic's knowledge into scientific programs. They developed new technologies for defense, energy, and exploration, and shared some of this knowledge cautiously with allied species. The Valiant's journey had opened doors that no one had imagined possible. Spaceships became faster, safer, and more efficient. Communications reached across light years, and understanding of the galaxy's natural and artificial phenomena grew rapidly. Earth was no longer an isolated world. It was becoming a beacon of innovation and cooperation. Yet with progress came challenges. Some alien factions saw humanity's rise as a threat, plotting in shadows to seize the relic or challenge Earth's influence. The Galactic Union debated how to manage the balance of power, some members warning that humans could destabilize entire regions of space if not guided carefully. Captain Grant and the Valiant crew knew that vigilance was essential. The relic had made them powerful, but it had also placed a target on humanity's back. During this time, the crew discovered new abilities within the relic. It could sense intent, evaluate threats, and even provide guidance for complex decisions. It almost seemed alive, responding to human actions with precision and purpose. The crew began to treat it not just as technology, but as a partner, a guardian that worked alongside them to navigate the galaxy's perils. Arya theorized that the relic's creators had intended it to find intelligent species capable of understanding responsibility, and humanity had passed the test. In the following years, humanity expanded its influence, forming peaceful alliances with new species and learning more about the galaxy's hidden civilizations. Exploration missions grew, inspired by the courage shown by the Valiant's crew. Every expedition carried the lesson that determination and ingenuity could overcome the impossible. The galaxy, once dismissive, now sought guidance and collaboration with humans, and the Valiant story became a symbol, proof that a single small ship with a determined crew could reshape destiny. Captain Grant often reflected on how far they had come, from being laughed at to leading humanity into a new era of exploration and respect. The lessons of courage, patience, and responsibility were clear. The relic had given them power, but it was human wisdom and compassion that ensured it was used for protection and progress. The crew knew that their journey was only the first of many, that the galaxy would continue to challenge them, and that every choice could alter the course of countless lives. The Valiant itself became a legendary ship, its story taught in schools across Earth, its missions studied by students and explorers alike. The ship symbolized hope, resilience, and the belief that even the smallest and most underestimated could achieve greatness. Humanity's reputation in the galaxy transformed, from a species considered weak and naive to one recognized for courage, intelligence, and innovation. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would never be forgotten. Meanwhile, the relic continued to pulse softly in its chamber on Earth, a quiet reminder of the responsibility humanity carried. Its presence encouraged scientists, leaders, and explorers to think beyond fear, to act with wisdom, and to seek knowledge rather than power. Humanity had been given a tool to shape its destiny, but the true test was moral. The crew of the Valiant understood that legacy was not measured by conquest or fear, but by how they chose to use the power entrusted to them. Years later, children would look up at the stars and dream of following in the Valiant's path. Inspired by stories of courage, unity, and determination, humanity had proven that even a single ship could defy expectations, survive impossible odds, and change the galaxy forever. The relic had been a gift, the crew its guardians, and the world had learned that strength comes not from size or force alone, but from intelligence, courage, and the will to persevere. In the end, the story of the Valiant, its crew, and the ancient relic became a timeless lesson for all civilizations, a reminder that even in a universe full of doubt, mockery, and danger, bravery and wisdom could light the way. Humanity had faced the galaxy, and the galaxy had finally seen them, not as weak, but as pioneers, guardians, and a species capable of shaping the stars themselves. And from that day forward, no one would ever mock the courage of one ship or the determination of humanity again.